Okay. So, alright, so, heyo, my fellow Rumble Maniacs. It's Mr. Rumble Rose is here, and, today I wanted to do another random installment of, Rumble Rants and Rambles, where I talk about something that's on my mind, and I usually try to do it in one take, and I do it with no scripts whatsoever, because, in my opinion, and this is gonna sound like a hot take, so, take it as you will, but I feel like if you are doing a rants and rambles type of thing like this and you use a script, then it's not really genuine, in my opinion. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk about something that happened quite recently, and I wanted to kind of like give my thoughts on it, and maybe then some. So, quite recently, I did a little thing in Dead by Daylight where I played some Survivor. Go figure, right? So, on the 17th of January of 2026, I decided to play some Survivor, and I decided to do a little thing of getting a legendary skin for Ellen Ripley, which is who you see before you, which is not, which turns her into William Hudson. Now, I've never seen the original Alien movies, but I've seen like the memes and stuff that this guy has conjured up. Um, and I know that originally, and I know that, well, at least I believe, if I remember correctly, the original person, the original actor who played William Hudson was Bill Paxton. Now, for me, I've seen like certain movies that had him in it. A couple of my favorite ones were Twister and the first Terminator movie. Um, and I figured that I kind of figured that there was he was a thing. As a legendary skin. I had like a decent amount of money left in my PlayStation account. So what I did was I bought some orc cells and I said to get him to, kind of play around with them. And because I didn't really have Ripley like tier 3 or whatever, I only had like certain perks that were in the purple, aka tier 3. So so I worked with what I got, thought it was like a decent little build to play around with and just, load into some games. Now, some of these games, I would say that, some of these games I would say they were decent enough, even though like I had died. Now, I'm not saying like it's, no surprise that, that I ended up dying because, and I will admit this in saying that I am not like the best survivor main out there, in the world. I say like I'm just, I'm just an average Joe. Sometimes I have like, the good moments. Sometimes I have a handful of bad moments. But yeah, like I had some matches here and there, and then there was two that that kind of that kind of made me want to do this little video. So the first one that I had was I was playing on there. So one of them I had was I had a match on RPD against a Deathlinger. Now I would say that this Deathlinger was pretty decent. They managed to hit a good push on their shots, and they managed to get some insta downs because of how they had because of how they had a particular add-on, which was I believe Eerie Coin. Because I think like with Eerie Coin, if you manage to nail survivors within a certain range, they become exposed, and if you can able to reel them in time, you can be able to instantly down them, in one hit. No matter, even if they're healthy. And I should know this because I had gotten, unfortunately, pegged with those a few times. So the match goes on pretty decently, I think. Having like a nice little back and forth type thing. Um, and the conclusion, if you will, was that there were 2 gens left, and there were 3 of us remaining because the slinger managed to get someone out of the game, and and go from there, right? Now, I'm doing my best, to like, run, to loop, kind of, keep him occupied, even though like I much rather would just do gens and try and loop when I know that looping is kind of like a strategy type thing, and all that just jazz. Um, so yeah, sometimes you have to like, loop the killer in order to not go down and all this shit and whatever. Okay, I get that. So yeah, I'm going around, I'm running around, trying to not get down by the slinger, and unfortunately I end up going down, which it is what it is. Now, now, Singer picks me up, takes me to a hook, and puts me on said hook, right? You know, normal little stuff here and there. So nothing really out of the ordinary. But then he stands there for a few He stands there for a few seconds, probably longer than I have seen any killer do, and they just instantly DC. Now, I don't know why they DC for him. Like I really don't, because at this point in the game, there were still 2 gens left, and every one of us were now on death hook basically. I just got put on the hook, put on the hook for the second time. Okay, like I got put on the hook for the second time, and I believe that the others were injured. So there's that. Okay. So I'm a little bit confused, wondering like why the fuck the Slinger did DC like that for, when the game was still when the game was pretty much still seemingly like pretty winnable in my opinion. Like they could have turned this around. So I shit you not, very next game that I had, it was on Nostromo, aka the Alien map. So I'm like, oh, Hudson's on the Alien map. First time doing it, with his character and all that. So see what happens. Okay. So in that match, I was up against a nemesis. Now, everything seemingly was again going pretty decent, for both sides. They got like nemesis got quite a lot of hooks in and everything. We were working, we were doing gens pretty well, I thought. And then we get to the end game, and I mean like little end game. So it gets down to like 1 gen, and I believe like I'm the one that's working on the last gen and everything, and I also kind of remember this because I remember that when I was looking around, when I was looking at my surroundings, that I was actually not too far from the exit gate. So, I'm working on gen, while everyone else is preoccupied or doing God knows what. Gen pops. I go at the I flip switch, and then bam, bam. Follow a few seconds later, bam. All 3 of my other teammates are down, and one by one they slowly get put. They slowly but surely get put on the hook. Now I can't remember I can't remember the other 2 survivors, but I know that there was Nicolas Cage. Um, so the Nick Cage in that match was the first one that I managed to save, while the other two were down, and the killer and the nemesis was going to try and take care of them. Okay. So So yeah, like I go, I get to save on Nick Cage. We managed to outrun the killer, outrun the nemesis a little bit. I believe that the gate was, I believe I managed to open up the gate and everything like that, and of course, then there's like the whole in-game collapse timer. But I saved Cage. I get a heal, I heal him up and everything like that, and we try and go for the other two saves. Now, the other two survivors, they were pretty much that far apart from where they were hooked, and I feel like this is a situation that could have been very winnable. Like the Nemesis, I would say at this point could have possibly had like a 2K tie, maybe even a 3 if Nick was gonna be like over altruistic or whatever, or maybe if I got unfortunately unlucky or whatever, then it might have been a full 4K. I don't know, but like I healed Nick Cage up. We go in for the saves, and we didn't even get a chance to fucking do the saves because the Nemesis, for whatever reason, DC'd. So yeah, they was like complete. It was an in game. They completely DC'd, got 0 points, got the little like disconnect, icon thing for your name, and one of the survivors that was paired up with, was like GG. It was like GG. Don't know why the killer DC'd for. And I was telling him about like how that was my second encounter of a killer that DC'd for some reason, despite the fact that everything seeming was like pretty winnable. Now, I made a little tweet over on my Twitter, even though like no one responded to it, which I'm not surprised. Like I know that a lot of times, if I was to post something on Twitter, like no one really, see it or get your shit, to reply to it, whatever. So I kind of made a little thing, and I talk about the whole situation of, and I talk about like the whole situation of killer anxiety. So, um, so yeah, like I talk about that and everything, and I don't know, like it kind of gave me the idea of, cause I've been seeing like a lot of videos as of late talking about the whole situation with Dead by Daylight, killer anxiety, and everything like that. And to me, I honestly have to question the fact of like, is it really killer anxiety, or is it just straight up entitlement? Now, the one thing I've always been hearing about from a lot of people is balancing. Like oh, like or like oh, like killers, like have only have like this, only have like so much, and survivors having like these OP perks. And even though they didn't say OP, but it's pretty much like the mindset of like oh, these perks are so OP, they're so overtuned and stuff like that. That they need a fucking nerf. Um, but yeah, like a lot of people, like a lot of killer players saying like, oh, everything's like on fire sides, too OP, things of that nature and all that. And and again, they just talk about balancing, which I've talked about before in a few videos, maybe even more so in the future, where it's like saying like, hey, as much as you want to beg and plead for that, that so-called precious balancing, it's never going to happen because it can't. Because in my opinion, it can't happen. If it like, and I know some people are going to be saying like, oh, the killer's supposed to have like the power role and everything like that. And to my opinion, it's like, no, because if the killer role has an opinion and survivors get little to fuck all, then you're not really going to have much of a game, especially like a very good game, because like if the killer, because like if killers have like the big powerful roles or whatever, then I feel like you're gonna get like more people just wanting to go next, or or just like not really queue up at all, to where it's like, you know, you can't build to, you know, load into a session. But I don't know, like it just made me think, like, you know, is there really like when would the justification be from a thing of having, you know, the supposed killer anxiety versus a killer's entitlement? Now I know some people, I know probably some people are gonna be saying like, oh, like, you know, not all killers are entitled, you know, it's mostly survivors and everything like that. And I'd say like you're about half right. Okay, maybe you have like a little bit of truth to it, but you know, a lot of people say that, oh, you know, it's always survivors that have the entitlement and everything like that. But whether people want to admit it or not, killers have, you know, that entitlement as well. You know, it's like, oh, you know, you're running these, you know, you're running this, that, and the third for a perk loadout, or, you know, like you're using this so aggressively that, you know, it makes you forced, you know, to do one or two options. Is going to be like a lose-lose situation and stuff like that. And it's just, I don't know. like I don't know. Like my mind is kind of like split. You know, I mean, it's kind of like that little image that you see of, like, you know, if, like, you know, like one person being in that crossroads where it's like, on the one hand, I kind of see, like, you know, people talking about killer anxiety, you know, and actually being a thing, and on the other hand, it's like I feel like it's complete horseshit. You know, like, I feel like it's complete, like, I feel like it's just absolute shit to the point where it's like, oh, you know, if things don't go my way and everything like that, you know, if things don't go my way or something like that, then I'm just going to straight up DC. And I feel like that's just pretty. I feel like that's just really just overall fucking stupid. And I feel like, you know, that just needs to be addressed. Like, I feel like they, you know, needs to be addressed where it's like, you know, could you be able to, you know, actually quote, you know, count this as killer anxiety, or would it actually be just straight up entitlement? You know, because at the end, you know, because at the end of the day, it's like, you know, not everyone's not like, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, yeah, you know, you might come across those survivors that have, you know, the entitlement factor going into them, but killers are not spared from that. You know, like, killers are not spared, you know, from having the entitlement that they do of, like, you know, oh, you know, I'm a little bitch about this, and that, and the third because, you know, it's, you know, because, you know, it's so unfair and things like that. You know, like, there is killers that, you know, that have bitched over stupid stuff, but I don't know. Even though, like, I doubt anyone's gonna fucking respond to this, but I just had to, like, I just wanted to, like, just to, you know, make this little video, kind of just get my 2 cents out, and just talk, you know, just ramble, because, like, because it's just one of those, it's one of those situations that just fucking boggles my mind, and I will never understand, you know, some of this stuff, you know, some of the shit that, you know, these people who play killer, you know, do sometimes. So anyway. Maybe you guys have an idea of something like that. Maybe, you know, share your thoughts or something like that. I don't know. But as always, thank you so much for listening / watching. And I'll see you in the next video or live stream.